#1 back in '96, coming back from a 2-0 deficit. Last year meant disappointment for both franchises as the Yankees lost to Cleveland and Atlanta succumbed to the eventual champion Marlins. So this year for the Braves and their slugger Andres Galarraga, it's the series or nothing. Same to be said for Darryl and his Yankees. It begins right now with a marquee matchup of smooth southpaw Andy Pettitte going up against one of the smartest and best in the game, Greg Maddux. It's the Braves and Yankees, and that says it all. MSG presents New York Yankees baseball, and tonight it's the first of 4 straight days of a showdown featuring the 2 best teams in baseball, the New York Yankees and the Atlanta Braves, and it all begins tonight with the ace of the Braves staff, Greg Maddux, going up against Andy Pettitte tonight at the stadium. And the fans have responded to what is obviously a marquee matchup tonight in the Bronx. A huge crowd is assembling to create the best atmosphere in the game, for there is no place like Yankee Stadium when it's full for a showdown like this, as we learned in the 1996 World Series. Good evening, everybody. I'm Al Troutwig. It is the Yankees and the Atlanta Braves for the next 4 days, the first 2 here in New York, the next 2 at Turner Field in Atlanta. We'll talk about the Atlanta Braves for just a moment. For one of the players that they bring to Yankee Stadium tonight was not with them in 1996. Then he was tearing up some offensive numbers for the Colorado Rockies, and when he left the mile-high thin air, some said and thought that his power numbers would drop off. No such thing for the big cat, Andres Galarraga, who has 25 home runs and 67 RBIs. Andrew Jones in center field, once thought to be an interchangeable part, he and Jermaine Dye. Well, the Braves made their choice, and it looks as though they made the right one. Andrew Jones may not hit like a center fielder should, but defensively he's outstanding, and the Braves and the Yankees bring the best records in their respective leagues. The Yankees at 50-18 with the 3rd best ERA in baseball. The Braves at 50-25 with the 2nd best ERA in the National League. The batting averages are similar. The power numbers favor Atlanta, but the atmosphere, at least in the first 2 games, favor the Yankees in a big-time way. For more on what we'll be talking about a lot tonight, let's go upstairs to Jim Cott and Ken Singleton. Guys?
All right, thanks a lot, Al. For those that don't like interleague baseball, you should be in Yankee Stadium tonight. Nothing piques the interest of the baseball fan like the 2 best clubs in baseball, and they're so evenly matched. So what would it probably come down to? And that's starting pitching.
And you talk about the Atlanta Braves, pitching is their game, and their ace is Greg Maddux, who'll be going tonight. Extra added incentive for Mr. Maddux tonight. He's looking for his 100th victory as a Brave. Now, this came last year as he struck out Bernie Williams on the way to a 2-0 shutout. This year against the Montreal Expos, first of all, they saw a lot of late movement on his pitches. He's usually down in the zone. Very tough to hit home runs against. Excellent breaking ball, good changeup, spots his fastball as well as anybody in the game, and has only walked 16 men this year.
And Kenny, you hit the key word. If you watch Maddux tonight, it's late movement. That's why he's tied for the National League lead in wins, 2nd in ERA. He's tough to hit against, and he's been a road warrior, 15-0 in his last 20 road starts. Hey, the Yankees have a pretty good pitcher going for themselves in Andy Pettitte. He's been terrific in June.
Well, his last 3 starts have been excellent. He has 2 wins over those 3 starts. His last one, when the Yankees really needed a win to avoid a sweep in Baltimore, Andy Pettitte was on the mound, and he got the job done. The Yankees won the game 5-3, but the key for Andy Pettitte, he kept the ball down in the zone, and the Orioles had all kinds of problems hitting him. He went 7 1/3 strong innings, and the Yankees went on to win the ball game by a score of 5-3.
You see what Andy's done in the month of June, and I think what might help him in tonight's game, Bobby Cox has all his lefties on the bench, and really left-handers hit Andy Pettitte quite well. We're all set for what should be a terrific pitching matchup tonight. Andy Pettitte and Greg Maddux, the Yankees and the Braves. We'll have it on MSG when we come back.
New York Yankees baseball is brought to you by the irresistible taste that makes you say, did somebody say McDonald's? By American Express. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, American Express helps you do more. By your Tri-State Jeep and Eagle dealer. There's only one Jeep, and it's only at your Tri-State Jeep and Eagle dealer. And by Nobody Beats the Wiz Home Entertainment Center.
A view from above Yankee Stadium. Andy Pettitte in search of his 9th win. And at the stadium, an almost postseason-like atmosphere. 8-5 with the ERA just over 4. And the rest of the numbers on Andy Pettitte. More than a hit per inning, but in June, he has been much improved his last 3 starts. And he'll face the leadoff hitter, Tony Graffinino. And Tim McClellan, the home plate umpire, says that's high for a ball. Secondary audio programming available on tonight's game. That's in for a strike, 1-1. Graffinino, a native of East Islip High, a New Yorker. And when Mark Lemke went down with an injury last year, the longtime second baseman, he got a chance to play regularly, and he's doing well. Inside, 2-1.
And Graffinino is a product of the Braves farm system. His first major league appearance was a couple of years ago, 1996. What do you think happened to him? His first major league appearance. Got hit by a pitch.
Right up the middle. Andy Pettitte almost got hit by that pitch. As Graffinino starts the game with a sharp single to center field. Let's check out the rest of Bobby Cox's lineup tonight. Gerald Williams, the ex-Yankee, batting second, then Chipper Jones third. Andres Galarraga, the big cat, the cleanup hitter. Javi Lopez, the DH. Then Andrew Jones, Eddie Perez, Danny Batista, and Ozzie Guillen. Starting lineup brought to you by Bob Stores. Great buys on brand you wear.
In the field for the Yankees tonight, Raines, Curtis, O'Neill in the outfield. Brocious, Jeter, Knobloch, Martinez in the infield. Girardi doing the catching. Andy Pettitte on the mound, and Tim Raines out in left field. Rock getting the start out there tonight. The Yankees still awaiting Bernie Williams' arrival. Off the disabled list.
As Gerald Williams takes low for a ball, I think Joe Torre felt that by the weekend, when the Yankees and the Mets go at it, Bernie will return from Tampa and possibly be ready to play. Now, who can ever forget the contributions that Gerald Williams made to this ball club over the past few seasons? Shows bunt and takes outside 2-0, particularly in Doc Gooden's no-hitter. That spectacular catch off the bat of Alex Rodriguez early in that ball game. And he's found a nice parking place here in Atlanta, contributing to this ball club.
Has his average up over 300, getting the play against left-handed pitching.
As Graffinino took a very short lead, Pat Corrales, the veteran first base coach, I'm sure has alerted all of the Braves base runners, and they got a chance to see it in the World Series 2 years ago. Pettitte's great pickoff move. There's the veteran first base coach.
That's one of the shortest leads. I mean, if he fell over, he would go beyond the bag.
Almost a softball lead. Sometimes I think against Andy Pettitte, you might be better off doing that. Just keep 1 foot on the bag and then break off with the pitch. Fouled straight back, and it's 2-1 to Gerald Williams. Would not strike me as an ideal number 2 place hitter. Gerald tends to be aggressive and pulls the ball more. Right here, I'm sure Bobby Cox would like to see him take it the other way. You figure this would be a low-scoring game if both pitchers pitch up to their ability. Shows bunt and fouls it at the plate.
Maybe Bobby Cox expecting the same thing as Gerald tries to advance the runner with a sacrifice bunt. Watch him come around here, and let's check out the form. Well, actually, you move the bat. You see how he dropped the bat at the ball? Usually you're supposed to move your knees, flex your knees up and down. That helps move the bat. There's Bobby Cox. His ball club has won the division 6 years in a row, and they're well on their way to making it 7.
Struck him out. Good sharp cutter. And Williams is down on strikes. First out of the ball game.
Now, once you get yourself in a 2-strike situation with Andy Pettitte for a right-handed hitter, you got to look for something low and in. That had plenty of bite on it. That kind of reminded me of the pitches that we saw in Baltimore in his last start. Very effective down and in the right-handed hitters.
Now, this is his time. If you back on track, as the scouting report says.
DPs are us. He will get a double play ball very often. And cutter magic, we just saw it to Gerald Williams.
Back on track because June is the month when Andy usually starts to pitch his best baseball. Chipper Jones takes inside for a ball. Not seeing Chipper Jones on a regular basis other than on television, you don't realize he is 6'4", well over 200 pounds.
Yeah, you don't realize how big he is until you get right next to him. And how powerful he is. 18 home runs.
Off-speed pitch in for a strike, 1-1.
But the unusual thing about his 18 homers, he's a switch hitter. All 18 have come batting left-handed. He has yet to hit one right-handed. He worked very hard in the offseason to get his right-handed hitting going. His average is up, but his power numbers are down right-handed.
Low for a ball, and it's 2-1. Back in 1990, the #1 player picked in the overall draft, and if Todd Van Poppel had not shown somewhat of an interest in going to the University of Texas, the Braves may well have picked Van Poppel instead of Chipper Jones, and he would have been the #2 player. Fouled at the plate, 2-2. And those power numbers that you referred to, I think that's another plus for the Yankees having a left-hand pitcher. Lefties actually hit better against Andy Pettitte than righties, but it's customary as the big cat waits on deck for Bobby Cox to keep Klesko and Lockhart and Michael Tucker on the bench. They'll be in there tomorrow night against El Duque.
There's not a right-handed hitter on the bench for the Braves tonight to come up and pinch hit.
Low, and the count is full.
You have to kind of watch Tim McClellan, the home plate umpire, carefully. He has a late strike call. So even after the pitch is in there, you're kind of thinking that, well, is it or is it not?
What he will do here, Joe Torre knows that from being a former catcher. He'll let Joe Girardi know immediately ball or strike, so he knows whether to throw it to second base. Oh, they got him. A 2-foot lead, and they still got him. That's how great that pickoff move is. Magic.
You know, it was such a good move, he couldn't even outrun Tito Martinez. He's going to try and get back. Now, he might as well surrender right there. It's all over. That first step, well, that'll do it. That's all Andy needs. And that'll send a message to the Braves for the rest of this game. Yeah, he's befuddled.
And embarrassed.
Yeah, how did that happen?
What a weapon, especially when you're going up against Maddux when runs will be at a premium. Jones stays alive with a ground foul.
Yeah, you don't want to do that in front of the home folks.
And there's not really much you can come back to the bench and say he does this or he does that. If anybody knew what Andy Pettitte did in that pickoff move, they'd have found out about it by now. Got him. Strike 3 at the knees. And a very effective inning for Andy Pettitte after the leadoff single by Graffinino. The Yankees are coming to bat against the National League's best, Greg Maddux, when we come back on MSG. Greg Maddux as Kenny sit in search of his 100th win as a member of the Atlanta Braves. He has 194 lifetime. There's the lineup that he'll face, brought to you by Bob's Stores. Chuck Knobloch, Derek Jeter, Paul O'Neill at the top, then Tino Martinez and Tim Raines, Darryl Strawberry, the DH, the bottom third, Chad Curtis, Scott Brocious, and Joe Girardi.
One thing that's happened to the Braves over the years, we're looking at the Yankees defensively. It should be the Atlanta Braves. It's Bautista, Andrew Jones, and Gerald Williams in the outfield. Jones, Guillen, Graffinino, and Galarraga in the infield with Eddie Perez, as usual, catching for Greg Maddux.
You see the pitching numbers, 10-2. 8-0 in his last 10 starts, and if you missed our open, his last 20 starts on the road, he is undefeated. 15-0, the personal mark. And leadoff hitters, forget about it. They just do not get on against him, so this should be a good challenge for Maddux and for Knobloch. Chuck, the best in the American League at getting on base in the first inning. Maddux has not walked a leadoff hitter in, get this, 220 opportunities. 1-1.
That's amazing. Late movement, few walks, fewer home runs, and black magic. He pitches to the black part of the home plate, right on each corner.
He paints. And he painted right there. 1-2. There's that late movement. I think there's a famous an artist, Gauguin, that they said looks like a demon, paints like an angel. Maddux is just the opposite. He looks like an angel, like a little choir boy, but he paints like a demon. There's that inside late movement, and Ozzie Guillen with a nice diving grab to take a hit away from Knobloch.
Yeah, Ozzie's still having fun after all these years, coming over from the White Sox into the Orioles and now signed by the Braves, flashing some of his Gold Glove form from the Chicago White Sox days. And I don't think that ball was really scorched. I think it got in on the hands of Knobloch just enough to give Guillen a chance to stretch out and make the catch.
Good example of that late movement you talked about. That ball just moved right down in on Knobloch's hands. Here's Jeter back in the lineup and getting more comfortable since coming off the disabled list. In on the hands to the big cat, Galarraga. Well, a few pitches with 3 or 4 pitches, and there's 2 quick outs here. That is Maddux style, and the hitters know that.
Last year in that 2-0 shutout of the Yankees on July 2nd, Maddux threw a total of 86 pitches, 2 hours and 9 minutes. In fact, the reason why I remember that, because we were flying to Toronto to do the game the next night, and I got to the airport so quickly that there were 2 flights leaving to Toronto before mine. And I got on the earlier flight.
Faces Paul O'Neill. 7 for 40 lifetime. I asked Paul before the game, did you get a chance to face Maddux before he really became Maddux? He said he's always been good as far as I'm concerned. Of course, Greg broke in with the Chicago Cubs when Zim was managing in the late 80s. Let's quickly check our umpires lineup, brought to you by NAM, National Arbitration and Mediation, the most timely, cost-effective way to settle your legal disputes. Same crew that was in Baltimore. Good pitchers crew. And O'Neill rips this down into the right field corner. Gerald Williams over to cut it off, and he's got a 2-out single.
Here's the pitch to O'Neill. It's supposed to be on the inner corner. Now that late movement, well, it kind of stayed right there. It looked like O'Neill was looking for that pitch. Watch him just turn those hips, open those front hips, pull the head of the bat through, and a solid line drive. The right field for a base hit. There's that lone in pitch that Kitty says all left-handed hitters love.
Yeah. And chances are where Eddie Perez was setting up, they've watched tapes of Paul O'Neill. He takes the ball the other way so well, but he can still handle a down and in pitch. Here's Tino Martinez. That's on the edge for a strike. You talked before the game about the target that Eddie Perez, who catches just about all of Maddux's games, and the target that he can set up so nice and low.
He kind of shifts his body. Now he's going to come inside. It's primarily when he's going outside. There's a throw over the first base. He sets up at an angle, so the pitch can actually clip the front part of home plate and then continue on outside. So they're just trying to get a piece of home plate, not all of it. And with the late movement, the way that Maddux can control the ball, that's the way he does. See, he kind of sets at an angle. He's kind of turned a little bit.
O'Neill on the run. Perez's throw is going to be late, and Paul O'Neill has a stolen base. The element of surprise. And the Yankees have a runner in scoring position with 2 down in the first.
Well, if there is a weakness in Maddux's game, he doesn't hold runners particularly well. Good pitch to throw on, but the throw is to the left field side, and O'Neill got an excellent jump and is in with his 8th stolen base of the year. He's only been caught 1 time. The throw plenty late, and I think the Yankees and the Braves both trying to get that first run of the ball game.
Just outside, 2-1.
You saw Bobby Cox have Gerald Williams attempt to bunt Graffinino over. You see Paul O'Neill steal second with 2 outs. Both managers trying to get that first run of the game, thinking their pitcher might be able to hold them from that point on.
O'Neill checking the outfield position, and that pitch misses the edge, and it's 3-1. 3-1 with a man on second these days is a rally against Greg Maddux.
10-2 with a 1.62 ERA, and Tino Martinez kind of struggling of late, but has always been tough with runners in scoring position. I don't think he'll get a good pitch to hit here, though.
Inside corner, count is full. One thing Greg Maddux will find out facing the Yankee lineup, opposed to a lot of National League lineups, they're not going to chase too many pitches early in the count.
This is a cutter that's going to run in on the hands of Tino Martinez. Almost looked like a real tight slider. Had that late movement in on the hands, and he took it for a strike.
And that caught that front corner you were talking about. It just sliced the front corner of home plate. With Maddux, it's almost like he makes that plate about 22, 23 inches wide with that late movement. Tapped out toward Maddux, and the 8-time Gold Glover will take that one himself. Each team gets a base runner, but we've played one. A battle between baseball's two best teams at the stadium. No score. Andy Pettitte heading back to the mound. Yankee baseball brought to you in part by the new Dodge. See your local Dodge dealer today. Almost a full house. The estimates were 35,000 plus. We're going to have more than that here tonight. Quite a statement for interleague baseball as the big cat Andres Galarraga steps in. Off the edge for a strike. Tell me from a hitting standpoint, and I guess Don Baylor suggested he go to it, why you would hit with such a wide open stance. Toward third on a couple of hops. Maybe the next at bat we'll talk about it as Brocious throws out Galarraga, one down on the Braves second.
Well, I can tell you it's to get a better look at the ball. Galarraga wasn't getting that look. Don Baylor was his hitting coach. See how his head is just turned towards the pitcher, geared in towards the pitcher. And Don Baylor opened him up. He steps into every pitch, so he's able to hit the ball out away from him. I think the way to get Galarraga out is to bust him inside really hard with good hard stuff.
And it appeared that might be where that pitch was. He grounded it to Brocious. Here's Javi Lopez. That's outside for a ball. Quite a plus for Bobby Cox with the DH, because Maddux likes to pitch to Eddie Perez, and yet you get Lopez's bat in the lineup as the designated hitter here in the American League Park. That's grounded toward third and will roll just foul as Brocious picks it up.
In a way, it's a chance to give Lopez a rest, because he does most of the catching. He's an all-star performer, made his first all-star team last year. And one of the ways that he made it, he got himself in much better shape than he had been in the past. As it had been a little heavier, has a sleeker body now, and is able to, keep it going all season long. And hit a home run in his first at bat in the All-Star game last year in Cleveland.
And you saw his season numbers. High and outside, 2-1.
When Lopez first came to the Braves, they had Charlie O'Brien. Most of the pitchers, the veteran pitchers, and this staff has been around for years, they wanted to pitch to Charlie. And it was kind of hard for Javi to break in. Of course, he was going to be the catcher of the future. And not only has he become the catcher of the future, he's become an all-star too. So now he catches just about everybody with the exception of Greg Maddux.
Counts 2-2. And the cutter, it appeared to be down and in. That's a pitch that Pettitte struck out both Gerald Williams and it appeared Chipper Jones in the first inning.
Yeah, these pitchers, Kitty, are set up, and you know what it means to set up a hitter by the pitchers that were away and out of the strike zone. All of a sudden you have a hitter looking outside, and then you bust him inside. He really has to swing the bat quickly and couldn't catch up with it.
Actually, let me correct that. That was not a cutter. It was a fastball. Here is the sensational young Andrew Jones. If you talk to people around baseball, you're looking at the best center fielder, not only in the game today, but many talk in terms of Willie Mays when you begin to talk about how Andrew Jones goes after a fly ball.
You're talking defensively, right?
Oh, okay. Right. That pitch was high for a ball. Fouled straight back, and I corrected the cutter it was an inside fastball because I think Girardi and Pettitte know how Andrew Jones, youngest player to hit home runs, he won a home run in the World Series and one of two to hit home runs in his first 2 at bats. They picked on that cutter first time they saw Pettitte. Now they're going with a fastball, tapped out. Jeter will have to hurry. Nifty off balance throw right on time, and Pettitte has a very effective second inning. No score at the stadium with the Yankees coming to bat again against Greg Maddux when we come back. Real treat at the stadium. Teams with the 2 best records in baseball going at it, the Braves and the Yankees. Maddux set to face veteran Tim Raines. In for a strike at the outside corner. To get inside of what makes Maddux so good, you watch the little things like where he plants his foot. You know, he will point the toe of that left foot toward the corner that he wants to throw to. Both of those are on the outside corner. That's exactly where he had his body positioned, and that's right where Eddie Perez was sitting. Now, if he wants to go inside, he'll just point that front foot a little bit more toward the inside corner. Maybe get on top of the ball a little more.
Not only has he won 4 Cy Youngs, he won them all in a row. Now that kind of taken over the award.
Tapped out toward Maddux on one hop. And there's one quick out. True to form, Greg Maddux with an out on 0-2. Let's just check where this front foot is pointing. Chances are you're going to see that toe pointing right toward the target where he wants it. It's pointing about down this way, which would lead you to believe he's coming down and away.
And that's where the pitch was.
That one was high and away to Strawberry. Ball 1. Darrell on a 5-game hitting streak. Low 2-0.
Only 2 Yankees in the lineup tonight have hit home runs against Maddux. Darryl Strawberry over the years of the National League hit 3 off of him. And Tim Raines hit 2.
In for a strike, and Maddux working quickly. 2-2 with the changeup. Gives you the appearance, as you see how Darrell has done against Maddux. Not a high average, but he does have 3 home runs and he's drawn 6 walks. Maddux gives you the appearance as soon as he lets the ball go, he already knows what he wants to do on the next pitch. Got him. Outside corner fastball. Strawberry didn't like it. A called strike 3 for the second out of the second inning. Well, tomorrow these same Atlanta Braves will be back here at 7:30. It'll be El Duque, Orlando Hernandez against Tom Glavine. And the Yankees will go to Atlanta for a couple of games in Shea Stadium for the weekend. And then next week the Phillies come into town. Might see a Curt Schilling appearance. And then the Orioles on the holiday, July 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Stadium ticket windows are open. You can get your tickets at Ticketmaster, the clubhouse stores, or even on the web as Chad Curtis takes strike 1.
Well, let's look at the pitch to Darryl Strawberry. To me, that's outside. Darrell's right, but he's put so many pitches in that same area. If you keep throwing the ball there, you're going to get some calls.
That's the influence of the catcher also, and I think in some instances, Kenny, and you know how we talk about the pitcher's viewpoint and the hitter's viewpoint, I think that the strike zone has stretched out unfairly to the hitter. It's gotten too wide, and they've taken away the legitimate higher strike. And of course, a guy like Maddux will take advantage of that.
And you just saw Eddie Perez. You spoke about the influence of the catcher. That last pitch hit his glove, and when the ball hit his glove, he moved his glove back to the corner a little bit, just a hair. You know, you try and catch the ball as quietly as possible, and that way you get a lot of extra strikes called.
He's outside, and it's tapped toward the right side. Graffinino is there. 2 harmless ground outs and a strikeout. Maddux continues to roll along. Hasn't been beaten on the road. 20 starts, no score. Back after this. To the top of the 3rd, and here's a look at the National Finance Corporation Skycam. National Finance Corporation, homeowners lower your monthly payments. Apply by phone 1-800-LOAN-NFC. Nice look at the Yankees positioning themselves for Eddie Perez at bat. Long time in the minor leagues in this organization before he got a chance to play, and he responds with a line single to right field to start off the Atlanta third. Time to check out our New York Marriott Marquis pitching matchup. Andy Pettitte and Greg Maddux, the starters tonight. And their careers, Maddux looking for win number 195, and check out the ERA. If he retired today, that would be the 4th best ever earned run average. And Andy Pettitte off to a fine start from a winning percentage standpoint. Looking for win number 60. Danny Batista shows bunt, and it's a good one. Girardi will have but one play. And he gets it to Martinez just in time. The sacrifice successful as Perez advances to second.
So here's something you won't see in the National League, in the National League ballpark. The 8th place hitter bunting in front of the pitcher coming up next to advance the runner. Instead, with Ozzie Guillen up next here, of course, in the American League ballpark, and they have a hitter batting ninth, Joe Girardi will make the play and throw Batista out at first base.
Of course, the only time you might see that, Kenny, and Maddux might be disappointed. He's hitting .317.
Yeah,
he wishes he was still in the lineup. Good job by Batista. Former Tiger, always known for his fielding skills. So the Braves really have a terrific defensive outfield tonight as the veteran Ozzie Guillen steps in with Perez at second. Pitch outside. Braves as a team playing with a bit of a heavy heart tonight. The reason Guillen is in the lineup, Walt Weiss, native of Tuxedo, New York, went to Suffern High School here, returned home to be with his 3-year-old son Brody, who has been stricken with a bacterial infection that is also spread to several of the Weiss's family, friends, and neighbors. Brody will be hospitalized at least a month. And tragic situation where Bobby Cox has said to Walt, go home and take care of your boy and stay there as long as you have to. Count 2-0 to Guillen, who is a free swinger. Doesn't walk much, doesn't strike out much. But the count is 3-0.
Ozzie Guillen started the year in spring training with the Baltimore Orioles. The Orioles actually took him north and later on released him as Joe Torre and Mel Stoudemire look on. Then he caught on with the Atlanta Braves.
That's in for a strike, 3-1.
The Braves thinking that while they had signed Walt Weiss as a free agent, and he's doing a good job, Weiss had a history of being quite brittle at times, and they wanted the veteran backup. Well, this is about as veteran as you could get with Ozzie Guillen.
Draws a walk. Take a picture of that. Ozzie Guillen drawing a walk on just 5 pitches. Never took the bat off his shoulder. That is very rare. That is his 9th walk of the year. And now the Braves with runners at first and second and 1 out for Tony Graffinino.
Graffinino, a product of the Braves farm system, which is very, very strong.
Breaking ball in for a strike. You look at both these clubs out there, the Yankees and the Braves have developed a lot of young talent of their own and then have had enough to trade away some of their young talent for, or to sign free agents or for veteran players.
That might not work well for Graffinino because the feeling is the Braves have the prospects that the Orioles would want for Roberto Alomar.
That's in for a strike, and it's quickly 0-2.
But I also think the Braves need some help in their bullpen, which has kind of struggled of late. And John Schuerholz, the general manager of the Braves, is well known for those July 31st deals. Yep, he will make one.
So Perez and Guillen take their leads with the 0-2 count on Graffinino. Pettitte not comfortable with the pitch or the grip on the pitch and steps off the rubber.
Of course, July 31st being the trade deadline for anybody you want to be eligible for postseason play. And I think it's safe to say the Braves are headed for postseason play again.
I think so. Pulled foul. The Braves, over the last six seasons, by far the major league's best team. The Yankees are second best, but if you average it out over the last 6 years, the Yankees would finish about 10 games a year behind the Braves. That's how dominant Bobby Cox's team has been. Even though the Yankees got the best of them in the '96 World Series. Waste pitch in the dirt, 1-2.
And I think one reason why the Braves are going to stay on top for a while in their division, when you look at the National League East, they're the only team with a new stadium. They've got Turner Field now. Of course, the Mets are talking about one. They've always talked about one in Philadelphia. Lately, Montreal, we were just there. They talked about a new stadium. And the Marlins want one too. But the Braves monetarily can stay ahead of all those clubs if they want.
Towards shortstop on the back end. Nice play by Jeter. Heads up. Boy, that's thinking before the ball is hit to you. And a nice quick reaction by Derek Jeter.
It would have been tough to turn two from deep in the hole. So Brocious, give him credit too. He went to the bag when the ball was hit in the hole. There was a place for Jeter to throw the ball. They get the force at third on Eddie Perez. And those are the things that Yankee fans, I don't want to say take for granted with Jeter, because he's been such an improving player over his brief career in the major leagues. But he made an error the other day, only his third of the year, but give him some time to get the rust off. He won't make those errors.
A heads up play there. Here's Gerald Williams. Now Guillen at second, Graffinino at first, and that's hit well to left field. Raines is on the run. He's looking up, and he's not going to get that one. Off his glove, 2 runs are going to score for the Braves. Williams to third, and it's 2-0 Atlanta.
Well, with Tim Raines in the outfield, you have to figure with Bernie Williams in there, Chad Curtis is in left field, which gives the Yankees a top defensive outfield. Raines maybe a step below, and maybe not a step fast as he was in his high riding days, but just out of his reach off the glove, and it falls in for a 2-base hit.
And Gerald Williams ends up on third, heading to third as the cutoff throw was overthrown. So he picks up RBIs numbers 16 and 17, and here's Chipper Jones. Tapped out foul outside of third. Going back to the Raines situation, Kenny, I think the other, don't know if I'd call it a gamble, but the decision Joe Torre made was putting Raines in left field instead of Ricky Leday, not exposing Ricky Leday to a veteran pitcher like Greg Maddux, which you go on a quick 0 for 4 against Greg Maddux, you might say, do I really belong in this league?
Yeah, he'd get a lesson from Mr. Maddux on how to pitch and change speeds. And
Ricky will get probably tomorrow night off also against Glavine, and then maybe play down in Turner Field. Straightaway center, not hit well, and Curtis is there. And he puts it away for the third out. But Gerald Williams, 2-out double off the glove of Tim Raines has given Greg Maddux and the Braves a 2-0 lead as we head to the bottom of the third.
Okay.
New York Yankees Interleague Baseball is brought to you in part by Hertz. For business, for pleasure, nobody does it exactly like Hertz. 71 degrees, a cool, rather hazy night at the stadium, and Greg Maddux with a quick strike to Scott Brocious.
Of late, Brocious has had the power game going. 7 home runs, high flying, 747 there, 47 RBIs.
Well, there's that late movement, and it's frustrating for Yankee hitters, but you see what Brocious did against the Indians. But pleasure to watch a guy like Maddux go about his business and apply his craft That pitch just off the edge. You see so many of his pitches are always within the corners of the plate. He doesn't miss them a long ways outside or in. He gets those hitters to chase those pitches down, like that one. Tapped out toward Maddux, and you can see why not a difficult play, but he has won 8 consecutive Gold Gloves, always in good position to field his position. Girardi steps in, and as soon as you see Joe Girardi face Greg Maddux, if you're a Yankee fan or maybe even a baseball fan, you think of that triple in the 1996 World Series. And when you talk to Joe Girardi, probably on his last year as a Yankee, and talk about his career highlights, that's right up there.
It's almost like he knew what was coming. He used to catch.
Yeah, that's right. Here's another difference in Maddux. With 0-2, he told Bobby Cox when he first got over there, he told Leo Mazzoni, the pitching coach, he said, tell Bobby I might give up a few hits on 0-2 because that's when a hitter is most vulnerable, and I go after him on 0-2. I don't necessarily just waste a pitch. Right now, Tim McClellan is hearing it from the Yankee bench, and he says, I don't want to hear it. As Joe Torre, you can read his lips, and he says the ball's down. Maddux is tough enough, and Joe doesn't want to see him getting any extra help from home plate umpire Tim McClellan. Just outside, ball 1.
But Joe is trying to widen that strike zone a little bit, or at least tighten it up, give his hitters a chance.
Towards second base. Nice backhand grab by Graffinino. And he just gets Girardi hustling down the line. Got him by a step for the second out of the Yankee third.
No, Graffinino replaced a longtime Brave second baseman, Mark Lemke. Had a shot with the Red Sox. There's a throw on the first base. Enough time at second to fall down, recover, and make the play. Shortstops do not have the luxury. Good strong throw by Graffinino, and you can see Girardi out by just a step, maybe even a half a step. Look at a hustle down the line, thinking that maybe I'll have a base hit, but Big Cat had it in his big paw just ahead of Girardi.
Ball 1 to Knobloch, hustling all the way, Joe Girardi, and that play indicative of how the Braves play in the field. Not only good starting pitching and a lot of power, they lead the National League in fielding as Knobloch fouls that off his knee, strike 1.
It's a good point, because when you talk to Bobby Cox, he says the Braves really started to come on in the early 90s when their defense improved. They had Jeff Blauser come on at short, and they had Mark Lemke at second base.
Right field, shallow, but Gerald Williams will have to play it on a hop, and Knobloch has the Yankees' second hit of the night. A 2-out single here in the third.
Now, despite the fact the Yankees are down 2-0, I think you got to look for Knobloch to try and steal second and get in the scoring position. Not the best of hits, kind of an inside-out swing. Flares it into right field for the hit. You can see where the ball is headed. It's going towards right field. And with Knobloch at first, and even with 2 down, you got to figure he'll be trying for steal number 20 on the season.
And that's a good sign, I'm sure, for Chris Chambliss and the Yankee coaching staff to see Knobloch starting to take the ball the other way. When he was Rookie of the Year in 1991, that's what he did best. And this year, when he seems to get in a little bit of a slump, it's when he deviates from that and tries to pull the ball a little too much. Back in time. I think you're right about the stolen base attempt, Kenny, because against Maddux, you don't figure on getting a lot of 2-3 run homers. No. You have to try to get them one at a time. In for a strike. Again, another strength of Greg Maddux's game. Watch the number, the amount of time he holds the ball. He'll vary the amount of time he holds the ball to try to keep Knobloch at first. You said that's not one of his strong points, is holding runners, but sometimes he'll come pitch in a hurry, and then he'll hold it for 4 or 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Pitch out, nothing doing.
I think for the youngsters out here who might beat pitchers in Little League or whatever, even higher leagues. This whole series is going to have a chance to see some of the best pitching in baseball and a chance to watch these guys and maybe not emulate their deliveries or anything like that, but just do some of the things they try and do. You know, hold the ball a little bit longer. You saw John Smoltz, who won the Cy Young Award for the Braves 2 years ago.
The Yankees will see him Thursday night, I believe, in the final game of this 4-game home-and-home. David Cone
will appear in this series, this 4-game series.
Looped out into short center field, and Jeter has a hit. The Yankees have a couple of men out for Paul O'Neill.
Well, if you talk to Derek Jeter, he'll say he's a little rusty. He's got a 3-game hitting streak, but that's the good news. The bad news, he's 3 for 14. He's had a hit in each game since coming back. Got just enough of that one. And maybe a little example of the more strength that Derek Jeter has as he flares it into center field for the base hit. So 2 balls that are really not well hit, but well placed. And Jeter will take it. It'll bring up Paul O'Neill, who has the only other Yankee hit, and that was a solid one in the first inning.
Knobloch checking the position of the Braves outfielders, so the Yankees have plenty of speed on the bases for O'Neill. Tap toward first, but foul. Maddux has given up 5 home runs this year and now about 125 innings of pitching. Coming into tonight, he was second to Kurt Schilling in innings pitched in the National League. Blocked by Perez at the plate, and it's 1-1.
You know, one thing that Maddux does, and Tom Glavine basically the same, when they set up from the stretch, they kind of fan their glove. They hold it as wide open as they can, because when they're adjusting the grip, they don't want to see anybody to see that they're actually moving their fingers on the ball and what they might be doing. So in other words, if he had the ball in there tightly in his glove, you can see him moving his fingers around to try and grip the ball. See how wide the glove is and how he moves his fingers around?
Again, Cole Faia, he really, and all pitchers should, he puts a lot of emphasis on where his fingers are in the seams, not only the position but the pressure, because he doesn't live on power. It's spin and late movement, deception. Leo Mazzoni is pitching coach, rocking Leo.
He'll do that for 9 innings or however long it takes. He'll rock and rock and rock.
1-2 to O'Neill. Up the middle. Kean can't reach it. Knobloch is headed for home. And the Yankees are on the board. It's 2-1 Atlanta.
Now Andrew Jones appeared to lose his footing. It looks like it's going to be the changeup. You see the grip, all fingers on the ball, and O'Neill stays with it and gets it back through the middle. Andrew Jones's throw, let's see if he does slip, because in his heyday, Willie Mays could throw better than that left-handed.
So now Tino Martinez will step in, and the Yankee Stadium crowd, a little something to make some noise about. High ball 1. Al Troutwig will join me in the 4th inning. You see Tino's first at bat, a ground out to Galarraga. Jeter at second. O'Neill at first. 3 straight singles by the Yankees. Another one into left center. Jones will cut that one off. Jeter is being waved home. The strong throw off target. And the Yankees have tied it at 2.
That looks like the same pitch is going to be thrown to Tino Martinez, and he went to school on Paul O'Neill's at bat, stayed with it, hit it better than O'Neill. You can see the outstretched glove of Guillen. Andrew Jones with another chance to try and throw out a speedy Yankee. Gets a better throw off, but it's offline. Jeter will score the tying run. So 4 straight hits with 2 outs. And the Yankees have tied it up, and Tito Martinez may be starting to come alive with the bat.
Jeter with the tying run to tie it at 2, and now Tim Raines. And I think the main reason he's in the lineup tonight, Joe Torre feels more comfortable with the veteran Raines against a veteran like Maddux. That's on the corner for a strike.
Well, it looks like, Kitty, that both pitchers suffering here in this 3rd inning. Well, the Yankees the 2nd time through the order.
Andy Pettitte with a walk to Ozzie Guillen. And then the double by Gerald Williams just off the glove of Tim Raines. But Greg Maddux now touched up for 4 straight singles after 2 were out here in the Yankee 3rd. Towards second base, Raffanino will take the short way to Guillen. Yankees strand a pair, but they score a pair against the National League's best. We head to the top of the 4th here at the stadium. Al Troutwig joins me after this commercial break. We're tied at 2.
We're back at Yankee Stadium, and this rarely happens, but they really got things started in a hurry. And on one pitch, Andy Pettitte gets Andres Galarraga, but Jim Cotta took a little bit of that quick reflex, the tag play that Tino's made many times this season to get the out.
And a good job of fielding positioning by the Yankees. Jeter well over in the hole to get that ground ball.
Now it's Javi Lopez, and he swings at the first pitch. It's foul, so it's strike 1. So did you have a good Father's Day?
Excellent. Excellent. How about you?
My sister-in-law forgot to cook the corn. But other than that, the barbecue was great.
And a grandfather's day, yeah.
No, not me.
No,
you. Yeah.
Right.
I've got some time yet. So now for the Atlanta Braves, it'll be an 0-1 count to Javi Lopez. And I'm a little bit mixed on interleague play, but if it means this, and I mean atmospheres like this and stadiums like this and big game feelings like this, then you got to be for it. David Cone and Joe Torre enjoying things as they stand. There you see it. Just about a full house at Yankee Stadium, and now it's 1 ball and 1 strike.
Interleague play is for the fans. If you ask the players, all these 2-game series and in and out of town in a hurry and marring what might be a postseason matchup.
Knobloch to Martinez. 2 away.
They would probably say, and both managers have said, you know, it's just another series right now. They're both trying to win their division. So there's not that postseason atmosphere in the dugouts, but there is in the stands. So it's excellent for the fans.
Yankees coming off a split with Cleveland, and as you heard Bobby Cox before the game, the Braves not coming in with the highest level of confidence. And starting 29-4, 39-14, they've been a 500 ball club. And this weekend, they lost a series to the Montreal Expos. And just based on money, that should almost never happen.
Although, again, as Kenny Singleton can attest to, you talk to Bobby Cox about the Expos, and he'll rave about their young pitchers and young players. They got a lot of talent, but they just don't keep them around too long.
Rabu got beaten up yesterday as the Yankees lost big time. 11-0. Andrew Jones, you know, he's made some outstanding plays. You brought up Willie Mays. I heard Dave Campbell last night on ESPN make the same comparison, but those 2 throws last inning allowed the Yankees to keep things going. The first throw, he planted it in the dirt, and I thought on the second throw home, Willie Randolph went to school on the first throw and sent Jeter to the plate.
Yeah, he's still a raw talent, but if you get a chance to see him make a break and catch a fly ball, that's his strength.
3 balls and a strike. Good signs from Andy Pettitte tonight. Got a pickoff, nailed Tony Graffanino in the first inning. He's had 3 strikeouts, and he's gotten a lot of ground ball outs. That's more the Andy Pettitte we've been used to the last 2 seasons. The 3-1. And the count is full.
I think this is the most relaxing situation you could be in if you're Andy Pettitte, because tonight, obviously, the focus is all on Greg Maddux. So if you're Andy Pettitte, you take the mound saying, what have I got to lose? Everybody expects Maddux to win.
Maddux towels down, working up a sweat through 3. Here's the full count pitch to Jones. Center field and deep. Back goes Curtis. He's got room and plenty of it to pull it down. It's a 1-2-3 inning for Andy Pettitte. Now Maddux back to the hill. It's all tied up 2-2. Darryl Strawberry against Greg Maddux as we begin play in the bottom of the 4th inning. It's a good sign for any team that likes to establish a winning feeling, that when another team scores, you answer right back, and that's what the Yankees did last inning. Strawberry grounds out, and there's one out here in the bottom of the 4th. Ranger fans, you won't want to miss Rangers Draft Day 98, presented by Dime Savings Bank, this Saturday, June 27th at the Theater at the Garden. Join John Davidson and Rangers players Dan Cloutier and PJ Stock for a fun-filled hockey afternoon. Tickets are $5 at the Garden box office. Doors open at 11. The draft starts at 12:45. All proceeds will benefit the New York Rangers Skate Foundation. For more information, call 212-465-6685. A little something new, way to enjoy the draft. And there's Chad Curtis singling for the Yankees' 6th hit in the ballgame. Well, Jim, for as good as Greg Maddux is, when a pitcher like that gives up 4 straight hits, it really gets your attention. And now, just 1 out removed from last inning, Chad Curtis singles.
Good intelligent approach by the Yankee hitter. See, the location of that pitch was away. Chad Curtis, like a lot of hitters early in the count, will try to pull the ball, but most of the base hits tonight, other than O'Neill's line drive, have all been the opposite way. Yankee hitters have been waiting and being patient with Maddux and trying to take him the other way.
The beach ball makes its way onto the stands as Scott Brocious steps in.
Might see right here, Al, also a hit and run. Joe Torre knows that Maddux doesn't strike out a lot of people, doesn't walk a lot of people. You'd like to get a run into scoring position, so you might see a hit and run here, or even an attempted steal during this at bat.
Looks like everybody's in a good mood on the Yankee bench tonight. Brocious to Chipper Jones. Here's one, and they do not get the return. Nicely broken up by Curtis, and that's how he plays the game of baseball.
Little infield ballet. First pitch swinging. Chipper Jones with a little flip throw, and then watch Graffinino just vault over Curtis. Chad made sure he had no chance to get Brocious at second base.
So Chad, he did that Bernie Williams quick rise to the feet, almost took Graffinino really out of the play. So now there are 2 outs with a runner still at first base. That's Brocious, and Joe Girardi is at the plate. Joe calls the triple he hit off of Greg Maddux in 1996's Game 6 of the World Series, his career moment. That, as he told us, and jumping into the arms of John Wetland when it was over. Girardi goes after the first pitch. Boy, did they have him shaded perfectly. Andrew Jones was almost in right center field, and that's where he pulls it down. So after the 4 runs, both pitchers put up zeros. To the 5th we go. Yankees baseball brought to you in part by Citibank. For banking anytime, anywhere, any way you choose. At Citibank, the city never sleeps. What on earth did we do before ATMs? Al Troutwig along with Ken Singleton. Jim Cott back after he completes his 1-inning vacation. Eddie Perez, the hitter for the Atlanta Braves. How are you, Ken?
I'm doing fine, Al. I'm trying to think of what I did before ATMs.
Spent less money, maybe. Ground ball deep in the hole at short. Jeter's had a busy night. Good scoop by Martinez, 1 away.
Well, that's one thing that Derek Jeter does as well as any shortstop in the game. Goes to his right because he can come up with a cannon from the hole, or maybe a little closer in this instance. Watch him set the feet straight over the top, just a hair into the dirt, and Tino Martinez will dig it out. Beautiful footwork. That sets up your body to make a strong throw, and right on target.
Good combination, Jeter and Martinez for the first out.
Well, Derek said he's a little rusty yet. I guess that applies to in the field as well as at the plate.
Danny Batista takes strike 1. Sacrifice bunt last time up as Pettitte faces 7, 8, and 9 in the Atlanta Braves batting order. Batista's slumping 0 for his last 13.
Kitty had mentioned that Batista's basically known as a good defensive outfielder. Can really go get him.
That doesn't sound good for this aspect of his game.
Yeah, exactly. Anything he gives you with the bat's going to be a plus.
It's like on a blind date when they say she's got a great personality. You know, the other part of it's possibly lacking.
That's a red flag, is it?
I don't know. That was a long time ago for me.
Well, me too, for that matter.
It's all about feel. I talked to Jim Cott during the last break. Hideki Irabu, all the pitchers, they always want to have a baseball in their hands. You watch Greg Maddux or Andy Pettitte go to grip the ball. They don't even look at it. It's all about just feeling where the stitches are and knowing where to place your hand on the ball. On the Toyota box score, you see Graffinino with the hit as the Braves built that run with the sacrifice and the walk, and then the Gerald Williams double off the glove of Tim Raines in left. The 0-2. Wow. In on the fists. That almost hit him on the fingers. It was so inside.
You got to check your top thumb on that one. In this case, it's the right thumb, just to make sure that everything's still intact.
What if it's not?
There's Hideki, who got hit around yesterday in Cleveland. That's certainly unusual for him. You got to figure everybody gets teed up every once in a while.
Ground ball. Brocious with the dive. Up and throwing. Boy, the infielders on both teams have really brought their A game.
Well, we've seen this time and time again this year. 1, 2, 3 steps in a dive. Place that mattress right there. Up and throws quickly and accurately across the diamond for the out. Scott Brocious. How many times have we seen Jeter throw from very deep in a hole this year? Not too many. That's the reason why.
Brocious gets there. When you look at it on the replay, live speed, that is the Hoover pickup of the game. Back live, Ozzie Guillen deposits a baseball in center field to Chad Curtis on one hop, so it's a 2-out single.
Kind of smelled that one coming, didn't you? The Hoover pickup.
Producers love it when that happens.
Oh, they stick it right in there.
Well, this is how the Yankees got all of their offense with 2 outs. Maddux got the bottom of the order. Brocious and Girardi to ground out, and then 4 straight singles by Knobloch, Jeter, O'Neill, and Martinez. Tied at 2 here in the top of the 5th. I believe this crowd, you know, in the left center field bleachers right behind Monument Park, that was closed until about 7:20, and now it's totally filled. Right out over here. Those people all arrived after 7:20.
They must have been on the FDR. Did you see that? There must have been a big accident, because I was coming up there. It took at least an hour and a half from downtown.
An hour and a half?
I'm not kidding you.
There's got to be a faster way.
Could have walked.
Drove home from Baltimore and got involved in the cracked tanker on the Staten Island Expressway. I've seen all of Staten Island now. Every part of it. One 1-0 to Graffinino as Pettitte buckles down with the runner at first. It was Graffinino who got picked off back in the first inning. That goes into the Yankee dugout.
Graffinino, a 9th round pick by the Braves in June of 1990. Can play second, short, third. And now with Mark Lemke having moved on, gets a chance to play a lot more.
Of course, the players are going to take this like it's, you know, a game, 1 of 162, but all your senses have to be heightened. This stadium, all things must tell you that it's not just 1 of 162. That's into the seats again. One and 2 to Tony Graffinino. Of course, everybody's got something to say, and out of the American Express quotebook, I look forward to the Braves because they're a good team. On the other hand, I look forward to the Mets just to get it over with. That's going to be a spectacle. I'll be happy when the weekend is over. Well, it is going to be great, and it starts here on MSG Friday night from Shea.
You know, the thing about the Braves, though, If all things go the way the Yankees and the Braves would want during the regular season and the early playoffs, Bobby Cox and Joe Torre, their ball clubs will hook up in the World Series again. And I think there is a psychological edge to the team that does better in these 4 games.
Until game 1 and the series is over.
That wasn't there 2 years ago.
In there for a call, strike 3. Pettitte freezes Graffinino. It's his 4th strikeout of the night. And we'll go to the bottom of the 5th with the Yankees trying to break this 2-all tie. House at Yankee Stadium. Some have better seats than others. Chuck Knobloch, first pitch off of Greg Maddux. 4-3 on your scorecard. Everybody's come up to swing away tonight. 1 out here in the bottom of the 5th. The Delta Airlines look at the upcoming schedule, and boy, there are going to be some big crowds and lots of atmosphere everywhere we go. Tomorrow we'll be back at the stadium. Wednesday we'll be with you on MSG from Turner Field in Atlanta, GA. And then Thursday, WB11 will have the finale of this 4-game matchup. And then we'll kick off the Mets and the Yankees from Shea Stadium Friday night here on MSG. Maddux against Derek Jeter. This is the part of the batting order that was Maddux's undoing back in the 3rd. Knobloch, Jeter, O'Neill, and Martinez all had singles, and the Yankees scored twice. In there on a late strike call by Tim McClellan. I am not liking his strike zone tonight.
Now, I was talking about if everything goes right for both of these clubs, they get to the World Series. Years ago, all you had to do is have the best record, and you were in there. Well, now with the 2 more sets of playoffs, it makes it a little bit more difficult.
Well, the Yankees just have to look at how the Braves, with all their talent and success, haven't won a bunch of World Series to know how many things you need to go right. They've had only 1.
They've won the division 6 years in a row. We're going to make it 7 this year, and 1995 was the only year they won it all. And that came in a 1-0 victory and a home run by Dave Justice, who's now in Cleveland.
I mean, when you look back at what the Yankees needed to break right for them to win that World Series, I mean, we talked about destiny and luck and all that stuff. Down 2-0 in the World Series to come back from that. All the bounces that went their way. Klesko losing the ball in the lights. Waller's pitch to Jimmy Leyritz. There you see the hits all accumulated, or for the most part, at the top of the order. Knobloch, Jeter, O'Neill, and Martinez, the top 4, getting it done. Jeter swings at 3-2. We'll do it again. Klesko lost that ball, that short little play that was one of the things that really helped out the Yankees.
Having a discussion with Michael Tucker.
Jeter smacks one hard to center field. Back goes Andrew Jones, and he makes it look casual. In full stride, Andrew Jones pulls it down, 2 away.
Well, you heard Jim Cotter earlier mention the name Willie Mays and Andrew Jones in the same sentence. Now, I'm still kind of skeptical, but he looked pretty good on that play. Got an excellent jump. Jeter hit it well. Might have been the best ball that Jeter's hit since he's been back, but he picked on the wrong part of the ballpark. About 400 feet straight away center, and Jones ran it down.
Yeah, center field's a bully, so you don't want to pick on it. Paul O'Neill hitting .327, has singled twice. I mean, tell me, wouldn't everything about your ears, your nose, your eyes would tell you this is a bigger deal? You can't downplay this when you're in the midst of playing it, right?
Oh, you got all these people in here. Nobody wants to play poorly in front of a big crowd.
O'Neill's quickly behind, 0-2. Things look pretty even on the board. Here's the New York Marriott Marquee matchup. Maddux versus Pettitte here. Maddux 1 out away from getting credit for 5. 6 hits versus 4. 2 that runs. And Andy Pettitte has struck out 4 to Maddux's 1, but Maddux hasn't walked anybody.
2 of the best in the game.
Another foul, same spot.
Maddux was upset with himself after that pitch. The pitch was a lot better than he wanted it to be. It was up in the zone, and his reaction after it was fouled off was like he got away with a mistake. Here's a look at the pitch. First of all, the count is 0-2. This is normal speed. O'Neill had a pretty good swing at it, and you saw the head bob by Maddux.
O'Neill lays off 1-2.
See, that's what he wanted to do. A little more fire and a little bit further out of the strike zone.
With his level of perfection, can you imagine how tough he is on himself?
Before the game, I was in the Braves locker room. He was looking at the Yankee roster. He wanted to know. Derek Jeter said, Jeter back? He was asking his teammates, is Jeter back? They said, yeah, he's back off to the state. How about Bernie Williams? No, Bernie Williams. So Bernie Williams is not back, so he kind of crossed him out of his mind. But he knows which hitters will swing at what, who swings, who doesn't walk very often.
Ooh, O'Neill for the big swing and a miss that ends the 5th. So we're still tied at 2. Kenny, I'll see you later. Jim Kottback's in the 6th. I'll see you on the post game. Deb Kaufman has this from the MSG Sports Desk.
Thanks, Al. The Mets are at Camden Yards. Rain delayed the start of the game, but they're into the 3rd inning now. Bobby Valentine flipped his lid and got thrown out of this game, but it fired up his team. He got tossed for arguing balls and strikes on a John Olerud at bat. Olerud was out on a called 3rd strike, but Valentine got the Mets going. Watching from the clubhouse, he saw Brian McRae go deep. He hits one out on Mike Mussina, and then Butch Husky stepped up to the plate and hit another one out. So the Mets go back-to-back, and they lead this game 2-1. The Phillies jumped on Tim Wakefield's knuckleball for 3 in the 1st, but Curt Schilling could not hold the lead. It's now 8-3 in the 7th in Boston. Schilling couldn't hold it. Here's your catch of the night, though. Bobby Abreu with the line drive to right, and it's Darren Bragg laying out for it. The Red Sox, like the Mets, went back-to-back tonight. This is John Valentin with his 9th. That made it 8-3. Again, though, it's 8-6 as Philadelphia is trying to come back. A disgusted Ken Griffey Sr. stormed off the field during batting practice today in Cincinnati and left the stadium. Didn't immediately tell anybody why. Tensions have been high there. The Reds have lost 8 in a row, and the Cardinals announced today that they're limiting media access to Mark McGwire to protect him as he chases the Roger Maris record. Yanks and Braves through 5 will be back.
The most award-winning brand of 4x4s has done it again. Presenting Jeep Grand Cherokee, just named Best Sport Utility. And now you can lease the leader with a special $319 a month leadership lease or get 1.9% financing. Grand Cherokee, highest in owner loyalty, and now named Best Sport Utility. No wonder year after year, Grand Cherokee always winds up on top. Check out this $319 lease at your dealer.
4 big names, Sampras, Graf, Agassi, and Sellis all won their matches at Wimbledon. Back now to Yankee Stadium as the Yanks and Braves all tied up move to the 6th inning. We'll see you later.
Thank you very much, Deb. We go to the top of the 6th here at the Yankee Stadium with the ball game tied at 2-all. And Kitty, outside of the 3rd inning, each pitcher has been as advertised. Huh?
Baseball like we dreamed it would be. Get it, throw it, let them put it in play, and find out how you did.
And see who plays the good defense
Right.
behind you. Andy Pettitte tied up with Greg Maddux. Gerald Williams is going to lead it off for the Braves here in the 6th and takes a pitch high for a ball. Williams had a double off the outstretched glove of Tim Raines in the 3rd inning. That's when the Braves got their 2. The Yankees came right back in their half of the 3rd inning and scored 2, and that's where we stand here in the 6th. Next pitch misses. 2 balls and no strikes to Gerald Williams. Gerald Williams, drafted by the Yankees in the 14th round. Swings here, broken bat, and it's going to drop in for a leadoff single here in the 6th inning. So Williams, with plenty of speed, is aboard with his 2nd hit of the night.
Yeah, Gerald Williams runs the bases like you wish every player would. That pitch down on the end of the bat, but as soon as he took out of the box, he was almost halfway to second base. Going to get a look at Andy Pettitte's pitching motion. In the month of June, when he's more successful, you'll notice that this foot has been facing home plate a little bit more. He used to be, that was not one of his best pitches of the night, but he used to be much more over toward the first base foul line than that. He's squaring up much better.
Chipper Jones 0 for 2. Speedy Gerald Williams at first. He has stolen 4 bases this year without being caught. Chipper Jones laying down the bunt. Andy Pettitte has it. An accurate throw would have gotten the runner, but he gets away. Williams is going to go to 3rd, and the Braves have runners in the corners with nobody out. So Andy Pettitte, I don't think he thought he had as much time as he did. He had plenty of time to make the play at second base.
Right, it's all footwork. And Andy Pettitte gets to this ball quickly, knows he has plenty of time, but when he fields it, watch, he just stands right on his back foot. He doesn't take a little stride toward Chuck Knobloch. which would have enabled him to get Gerald Williams. Just a quick little shuffle step. That might be one of the subtle differences tonight again between the two pitchers. Pettitte with an excellent pickoff throw, but not a particularly adept fielder.
I wonder if he knew who was covering second base. If you looked at Jeter and Knobloch, they both approached the bag like they were going to take the throw, and that can throw a pitcher off. Here's Galarraga. Throw to first.
That's certainly something, Kenny, that a pitcher, it's automatic. As soon as there's a man on first, you look at the middle infielders and say, who have I got, second baseman or shortstop? So you should know that ahead of time.
Here's a hitter who has led the National League in RBIs the last 2 seasons with the Colorado Rockies, and his production has not fallen off with the Braves. Galarraga pops one into short center field. Going back is Knobloch and Jeter. Coming on is Chad Curtis. He makes the catch, and this is much too shallow for Gerald Williams to attempt to score. So they get the dangerous Andres Galarraga on a short fly ball to center field, and the Braves, their base runners remain stationary. Galarraga, 25 home runs this year.
Yeah, first look at Pettitte, and Andy's been able to jam him. Chad Curtis comes in, and then fortunately for the Yankees, this throw hits the mound and hops straight. There was not a cutoff man there. If that throw hops off line, Chipper Jones would have been able to advance easily to second base.
I mentioned the Braves. They're on pace to set a club record for home runs this year. The record is 206, set in 1966 on a team that Joe Torre played for. That was the first year in Atlanta after moving from Milwaukee. Here's Javi Lopez. Runners on the corners. Was struck out and grounded to second. Line drive, base hit to center. The Braves are going to take the lead. Williams will score, and it's now 3-2 Atlanta. Javi Lopez serving as the designated hitter tonight. Comes through with the base hit that puts the Braves ahead. So the error comes back to haunt Andy Pettitte.
Almost looked like Andy thought he could have had this ball. Javi Lopez, terrific hitter with men on base, right over the head of Andy Pettitte. And you're right, the throwing error. It would be ironic if that would be the difference in the ball game between Maddux and Pettitte, and these two clubs that are so evenly matched. He would have had to. He'd have had to jump like Michael Jordan to grab that one.
Lopez, a hot hitter this month, hitting at 346. Here's Andrew Jones. Upstairs for a ball. Let's see what he's done tonight. Grounded to third and flied to center field. Andy Pettitte still looking for a ground ball to get himself out of this jam. Jones would be tough to double. Down low, 2 balls and no strikes. You start talking about 5-tool players. Well, you know, some of the tools have not been finely honed as others. Jones supposedly doesn't hit the breaking ball very well, but he's improving. And he does have power. Check swing, roll it to short. It's going to be tough to get to. Jeter's only play is the first base, and Jones is out. The runners will move up. Chipper Jones now moves to third, and Javi Lopez down to second. But Andrew Jones rolls out to Jeter.
Another subtle difference in these two ball clubs. The Yankees will seldom swing at 2-0 unless they get their pitch. There's a hitter's count, and Andy Pettitte got Andrew Jones to chase a pitcher's pitch and give Pettitte a chance to get out of the inning with just 1 run.
Well, Jeter's been well tested tonight. Yeah. He's had some tough plays. Here's Eddie Perez. Veteran catcher had a base hit and scored in the 3rd inning. Runners at second and third with 2 down. Hit hard, but foul just in front of Bobby Dews, the third base coach.
It's a quick strike, and they move ahead, Girardi and Pettitte. But here's that situation when you're up against Greg Maddux and the Braves in a close ball game. You look at first base open, you say, who would I rather face, Eddie Perez or Danny Batista, who's in the on-deck circle, who's known more for his fielding ability? So I think they'll try to make Perez chase something.
Eddie Perez came in with an average of 333. Pitches low for a ball. Now I know that it's in part-time play as Batista's on deck. Pettitte is 0 for 1 tonight, and he came in at 217. So there's quite a disparity in their batting averages. Now look at the runners. And Perez already has a hit tonight.
Yeah, the pitcher has to be comfortable doing it. A lot of times the bench just automatically calls it, but Andy Pettitte has to be comfortable, and this is what Mel Stottlemyre is going to come out and talk about right now. It's dangerous to try to make Eddie Perez chase a curveball in the dirt. There's a guy on third. So from my own experience, I would rather have a manager or a coach come out and say, you want to walk him or you want to get him out? Let's do one of the two, but let's not get caught in between and try to make one of those 59-foot curveballs. So if Mel Stottlemyre and Andy Pettitte's dialogue is, hey, we can get Eddie Perez. I mean, he's not the world's greatest hitter, even though he's hit well. Or you're more comfortable putting him on and going at Batista with the bases loaded, which puts a little more pressure on the pitcher to throw a strike early in the count.
By the way, I don't think we mentioned it, but that play by Chipper Jones on the butt goes as a sacrifice for Chipper Jones. No time at bat, and he reaches on the error by Andy Pettitte. Pitches in for a call strike, and Perez doesn't believe it.
He's the last one that should be talking about Tim McClellan's strike zone. He wants all of those for his pitcher, and this caught plenty of the plate. You see Girardi caught it inside, but it came across the inside third.
And let me reiterate, that play now has been changed once again. It's a fielder's choice and an error. So Chipper Jones will get an at-bat. Pitch is hit hard, but this is going to twist foul and get to the seats. Eddie Perez definitely looking for the ball in. He's still shaking his head about that call strike. Bobby Cox seen a lot of success, but a lot of people forget before he became the manager, he became the GM of the Atlanta Braves when they were really struggling over at Fulton County Stadium. Swung on to Brosius. And there's a throw that gets the Yankees out of the top of the 6th inning. But the Braves come up with a run. A big error by Andy Pettitte helped it along. We've played 5 1/2. Atlanta with a 3-2 lead. New York Yankee baseball is brought to you in part by National Finance Corporation. Homeowners, lower your monthly payments. Apply by phone 1-800-LOAN-NFC. And Singleton and Jim Cott going to the bottom of the 6th, and Tino Martinez will lead it off. And that pitch just missed, as they usually do with Greg Maddux, for ball 1. Tino had a base hit, RBI. That was in the 3rd inning. Picked up his 52nd run batted in on the year. 2-0. Maddux falls behind.
By his standards, I would think, Kenny, after the game tonight, he would say he's not quite as sharp as he usually is. He hasn't walked anyone, but he's thrown more pitches.
Well, that 2-0 automatic is a strike, but it's down and away. Tim Raines would be next. Off the end of the bat, he took something off, and the count is even at 2-2. He has a lot of weapons.
Hey, we touched on it at the beginning. It's late movement. That's the key to any pitcher, really. You're only going to find a few Nolan Ryans that can just rear back, throw the ball by people, or a Randy Johnson. But Greg Maddux learned from his days playing for Don Zimmer when Zim was managing the Cubs, and his pitching coach was Billy Connors. Billy Connors had a big influence on Greg Maddux.
There's a pitch. Tino knows it. Call strike 3.
No better example of a pitch of late movement than that inside fastball on the corner. Take a look at the 2 pitching motions. Maddux on your left. Notice pretty routine hip turn, as Andy Pettitte will. Of course, Andy up there at about 6'4", a little higher leg kick. Note the follow through. Maddux in perfect position. Pettitte a little more straight up. Not bad on that one. But Maddux on the balls of his feet, always ready to field his position. 8-time Gold Glover.
You know, you get the same feeling from El Duque when he's on the mound, and we'll see him tomorrow night against Tom Glavine. Excellent fielder that he is, and you feel like he or Maddux, you could put him out at shortstop. They give you a pretty good game. Raines swings and lines it over the head of Galarraga. And the ball gets hung up, and Raines is going to head for second base, and it's going to be a ground rule double. Either a fan touched it or it got hung up in the tarp, and it's going to be a two-base hit for Raines.
Yeah, a wink by Tim Raines, because that's a pretty good break for the Yankees. Wanted it outside and off target. A Greg Maddux pitch off target, missed by the whole width of the plate. If Gerald Williams gets to that ball, I don't know if Tim Raines tries to go to second base, but he's going to get awarded second anyway.
Well, Gerald Williams, all he could do is retrieve it after it was touched. And here is Darryl Strawberry, who was struck out and grounded out. Well, the Yankees had the tying run in scoring position with one out here in the bottom of the 6th inning. Greg Maddux, 10 years in a row, 15 wins or more in each season. Straw over Galarraga. It's a base hit. Raines is being waved home. This game is tied at 3. The throw gets away, but look at the hustle of the left fielder. Danny Bautista backed that play up, and Strawberry couldn't advance, but he did drive in the tying run. That is a clinic on how to back up bases for the off outfielder.
Boy, isn't that the truth? Darryl Strawberry with a 6-game hitting streak. Now another Maddux pitch off target. And look at Bautista. The throw gets by the middle infielders, and if Bautista wasn't there, that would have gone all the way to the stands, and Strawberry would be on second, maybe third.
Chad Curtis with a shot towards the corner. Long run for Williams. He won't get it. It's off the wall. Strawberry's headed to third. It's going to be a long single for Chad Curtis. Yankees coming back here in the bottom of the 6th. Chad Curtis looks like he's gone to school a bit and has stopped trying to pull the ball against Maddux.
Yeah, it isn't since Greg Maddux pitched against the Rockies a couple of months ago. You see again that pitch off target. They wanted it outside. It caught too much of the plate. Chad Curtis with a nice approach. He's trying to take Maddux the other way, as most of the Yankee hitters are tonight. And Gerald Williams has to play it out of the corner.
Second hit for Chad Curtis in the ball game. Leo Mazzoni's going to come out for a pep talk. The Braves bullpen is going to get busy. Maddux has allowed 9 hits.
Yeah, you have to go back well over a month, almost 2 months, to find Greg Maddux in a game where he allowed more than 7 base runners. You know he doesn't walk many, but the Yankees already have 9 hits tonight. They put more base runners on against Greg Maddux than any National League team has done in 2 months.
Strawberry representing the go-ahead run now at third base. You know, against Maddux, usually it's very tough to get a sequence of things going because he will not walk anybody. You're going to have to hit your way on. The Yankees have done it in 2 innings. Here's Brosius. Call strike, up and away. The Yankees had 4 successive hits, which produced 2 runs in the 3rd inning. They've had 3 successive hits here in the 6th inning as we look at John Rocker and Mike Cather up in the bullpen. Quickly ahead on the count, 0-2.
He's their leading hitter in this situation right now. I think Scott Brosius would take just a tapped ground ball toward the first base side. Galarraga holding Curtis there. Anything to the right side will get a run in.
There's a check at Curtis with 11 steals and 13 attempts. The Yankees, after Martinez called out on strikes, a double by Raines, a single by Strawberry, And another hit by Chad Curtis. Brocious with 47 runs batted in on the year. Couldn't get him to chase. A ball and 2 strikes. But still close enough to make him on.
Be very surprised, Kenny, if any of these pitches are above the knees. In a 1-2 situation, Maddux knows his only way out of this jam is something down.
There's Eddie Perez sitting at that angle again. The runner goes, and the pitch is swung on and fouled back. It was outside of the strike zone.
Well, what Joe Torre's doing here, you figure he's going to throw a strike, you guess strike, and send the runner to stay out of the double play, and that's one way to get the run home. And Brocious, with 2 strikes, even though the pitch was outside, threw his bat at it to keep Curtis from being thrown out at second base.
Both managers know that the runs will be precious tonight. The one that takes the lead into the late innings certainly has the edge. Brocious swings, and he fouls this one off too. Twice in a row he's thrown his bat at the ball. You hate to get in a dart throwing contest with him. He make contact and target.
And you like Scott's approach because he's behind in the count 1-2, but he's telling himself, if I just make contact and get the ball to the right side, it's going to get the run in. Knowing Maddux and Perez right now, they know he's very vulnerable to any pitch inside. You might look for this pitch to that late movement coming down and into Brocious.
A ball and 2 strikes. Swung on and missed. Strike 3. Big strikeout for Greg Maddux as Brocious heads back to the bench. It's number 4 for Maddux on the night, and he hasn't gotten a bigger one tonight.
Yeah, he doesn't get many, but again, they go outside, and the pitch had a little late movement on it. Just far enough out where Brocious couldn't reach it.
Maybe they call that reading the bat for a pitcher. And what I mean by that, you watch how the hitter reacts to each and every pitch. Maybe you go a little bit further out as he did on that one. Here's Girardi. 2 outs and 2 on. Swinging a hanging breaking ball.
Joe thought that might be the first pitch, good pitch he'd get to hit was the first one. Now that he's behind in the count, don't be surprised. It looks like Maddux kind of hung the slider. He's not been as sharp as usual tonight. Don't be surprised if you see the Yankees send Curtis, try some kind of a attempted double steal here with 2 out.
There's a toss to first and will chase Curtis back. The most hits Maddux has given up in any one of his last 5 starts is 6. There goes Curtis. The pitch is low for a ball. The fake throw to second. He's going to be in with a stolen base without a throw. It's number 12 for Chad Curtis.
Yeah, the fish aren't biting tonight, and you wouldn't expect a veteran team like Atlanta to fall for that, but that's what the Yankees are gambling on if Perez comes up and happens to take a shot at second base, but he hangs on to it and tries to get Strawberry to commit.
They call it the full arm fake. You'll see infielders use it, catchers use it, and try and get that lead runner to commit, maybe pick him off. A ball and a strike on Girardi. Greg Maddux has really had only 2 bad innings, the 3rd and now the 6th. Rock on, Leo. Little MTV on the bench there.
Yeah.
Now discussion on this next pitch.
Checking to see if the bullpen is ready, and if it comes down to a battle of the bullpens, that's a big edge for the Yankees. And Bobby Cox says our bullpen isn't as bad as people make it out to be. You don't win 50 games with a horrible bullpen, but they really miss Mark Wohlers, who's down in the minor leagues. They've got Dennis Martinez as their closer, so if it gets down to a bullpen game, the Yankees have a big advantage.
Change up, swung on, 1-2. The Braves starters are 42-17. Their relievers are 8-8. Joe Torre, on the other hand, the Yankee starters are 38-13. And the Yankee relievers are 12-5, so there's the edge in the bullpen that you're talking about, Kenny. Oh, both Maddux and Eddie Perez walking off the field and didn't get the call.
That was an umpire's balk. Tim McClellan started to move his right arm. Now he's jawing with Eddie Perez. McClellan with that deliberate call. I don't know if we could pick it up, but the pitch is borderline, and McClellan comes up and starts to move the right arm and then pulls it back. Yep, you see it was up behind him, and then he put it back down, changed his mind.
Tried it again, and it's a little hopper. Little tapper right back to Maddux, who gets Girardi out. Well, the Yankees come up with a tying run against Greg Maddux, 4-time Cy Young Award winner. We've played 6 here at the stadium. Hey, Andy Pettitte takes the hill. It's tied at 3. The excitement with the New York Yankees as they close out the 2-game set. That's against the Atlanta Braves tomorrow night, June 23rd at 7:30. Tickets that are available now at the stadium through Ticketmaster, the Yankee Clubhouse stores, and on the web at www.yankees.com. And you also see the Phillies and the Orioles on the upcoming schedule. The improved Philadelphia Phillies.